So when we have particles, we have to simulate them using particle flow operators. So we've seen how we've set up this particle setup here. So I'm just going to bring up the particle view, and I'm going to maximize this here so we can see something like that. And here we go. So we have our particles and we want to animate them. Right now we don't have any animation, so it's just if I scrub, nothing happens. When you want to start animating particles, it's always good to reduce the amount here. Let's say 250. So we have a bit less, but we'll be able to have a bit more interactivity inside of the viewport. And when we're ready, when we're happy with the effect, we can crank up the amount in the end. So there's no operator in there that animates the particle. So if I go here and I take a speed operator and drag it in, we can set it up to random 3D. The speed is very high at the beginning, so it's going to go in all directions very, very fast. So it's not exactly what we want. So I'll reduce the speed here and I'll make it maybe 50. And we want to have variation so that they don't all go at the same speed. So maybe a variation of 20, 25. And if I press play here, and actually let's zoom out so we can see what's happening. So something like that. We're going to get the particles going in all directions. So that's pretty good for the speed of the explosion. The problem now is that as they are simulated, the speed is constant, so they're going to go forever in the same direction. So we'd like them to slow down as they are being affected by the air resistance. So to do that, we go into the space warp and we go into the forces. One of them is called drag. So I'm going to put a drag force in here. And I'm going to drag in an operator called force, and I'm going to bring it into the event. And that force, I'm going to pick the drag force. So the drag here is now going to affect the particles. If I just press play, you'll see that they're going to slow down as time evolves. If I just exaggerate this effect, maybe 2000% of influence, what we're going to get is the explosion, and then they just stop there. So it's kind of a matrix kind of effect where the time stops, but that's what we want. We want them to kind of lose their momentum as they go away from the original explosion region. Now we want them to be affected by gravity. So I'm going to add a gravity force, and I'm going to bring in another operator, the force operator, and I'm going to add the gravity. The gravity, 1000% is very, very high, so it's going to go down too fast. So I'm going to make it maybe 50% here and press play, and you see that now they're going to fall down. The motion is good, so we got the motion of the explosion, and then they start to fall down. That's perfect. But after the motion, we need the particles to interact with their environments. We need them to, when they hit those objects, surrounding objects, that we want them to bounce. In order to do that, we need to go and grab a deflector, and I'm going to use a U deflector. The U deflector allows you to pick any object in the scene and turn it into a deflector. So I'm going to go to the modifier stack here, and I'll pick that bridge structure, that bridge base, and this is now the deflector. So if I go into my event, I can load in a collision operator, drag it in, and add that deflector here as the main deflector. And you see that if the particles hit that deflector, they're just going to bounce there. So if I just press play, you'll see that they're going to start to bounce there, and they're going to bounce forever because you see that the bounce effect of the deflector is set to 1, so they never lose energy. So I'm going to set it to 0.3. Or a lower value, and this bridge structure here is kind of slanted in one direction. It's not perfectly straight, so if we don't set any friction, they're going to slide forever. So I'm going to make maybe let's say to 100% so that we can get a full friction, so they're not going to slide at all. So if I go a bit closer now, what we're going to get is something like that. They're going to explode, and as they fall on the ground here, and maybe we want them to bounce a little bit more, maybe 0.6, something like that, and they're going to bounce a little bit more, and then they're going to start to stay there. So that's kind of the idea for simulating. So we've seen that we've got the speed operator that allows you to set them in motion. Then they're affected by force, and when they enter in collision with objects surrounding them, you just set the collision to be bouncing. If I want to have more, let's go back to, we had 2500. So if I just press play now, it's going to be a bit slower, but we're going to get the effect of the window breaking and falling onto this geometry there. So that's how you can do the basic particle simulation for explosions.